Classicus! Welcome back to another installment of Aw/No Sleep. Today, we have one from Skull Knitter. Hey, what can I say? When you like the way an author writes, you're attracted to it. Title! I own a shop where the haunted and damned come to be sorted. Part 2. If you didn't watch Part 1 yet, enough said. Like always, appreciate all of you. If you could please like and subscribe, it helps me out tremendously. Also, we are on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Without further ado, let's get into it. I've given you 3 accounts already, stories from my past, and the echoes left behind by certain spirits I crossed paths with. But I've said little about myself. Let me change that. You don't apply to be the keeper of this shop, this place for the damned and the drifting. You're chosen. Always near the end of the last keeper's life, when their time thins and yours begins. I was just a boy then, an orphan running wild in the alleys of London, sometime in the early months of a bygone century. Plain enough, shaped by soot and hunger, by streets that didn't forgive, and by lies that kept me alive. My parents had died in a house fire years before. I couldn't tell you how old I was when it happened. Most memories from that time drift like ash, impossible to hold. That's how it gets after enough lifetimes. But I do remember her, being haunted in the blackened gap between the butcher's stall and the print shop that sold broadsheets. I had stolen a gold bracelet from a lady's reticule, one of those dainty mesh purses they wore wrapped around the wrist. My fingers had just curled around the ridged band when her husband caught sight of me. He reached. I bolted, the bracelet clenched tight in my palm. I darted across the cobbled lane. Carriages swayed past like barges in a current, wheels clapping the stone, hooves striking sparks close enough to singe my hair. I made it across by the skin of my teeth. The lady and her husband gave chase. He managed to cross. She did not. There is much I cannot recall from those days. As I said, but her death remains carved sharp in my mind. A broad-chested draught horse struck her down, one of a matched pair. Its tack jolted and the traces went taut as the beast reared. A hoof crushed her ribs with a noise like snapping green wood. The driver hauled at the reins, trying to pull the team too, but one of the wheels, a great oak thin band in iron, rolled straight over her shoulder. She was still breathing, or trying to. Each breath came wet and slow, like choking water through a blocked drain. Her whole body shuddered with it. Her eyes locked on mine, raw and red-rimmed, wide and furious. All the softness was gone. I saw nothing but rage. I have never forgotten it. Her husband no longer looked at me. Not the thief, not the boy. Not the life I had taken, only her. That night, I settled into my fortress of broken wood crates and filth-slicked cobbles, curled in on myself, wrapped in strips of foul cloth scavenged from the gutters. My fingers ran over the ridges of the gold bracelet again and again, close to wearing a hole straight through the metal. The air stank of old butcher's leavings, of offal and pork guts left too long in the sun. It was the usual perfume of that alley, a miasma that coated the tongue like grease and never quite let go. I fell into a shivering sleep, my eyes not yet freed of the sight of that woman dying in the road. Because of me. A whisper filled the alley around me, a mournful song of a revenant drifting through the dark. It drew closer, and I pulled tighter into my makeshift nest. Footsteps followed, one dragged behind the other, catching now and then on the cobblestones. A slow and steady approach. I clenched my eyes shut, as if it might make it vanish, as if it might undo what I had done. I shivered from the cold, yes, but there was another chill buried deeper in the bone. The humming lingered just beyond the leaning wall of splintered crates and rotted boards that I called home. The footsteps stopped outside the small flap I used as a door. Something knelt. Joints cracked in a flurry, sharp and sudden like firecrackers. I heard the flap lift, just a corner peeled back. Something leaned in. A mint fragrance, sharp and clean, floating over a heavier metallic scent. Blood, real and present. Then came the breathing, slow and ragged. Each inhale caught on something jagged in the lungs. Each exhale shoved out with effort, thick and wet. She leaned in close. I opened my eyes and saw her. She still wore her fine jewelry, glittering at the throat and wrists. Her body was a ruin, a twisted amalgamation, bones bent in every wrong direction, compound fractures jutting beneath the skin like thorns, angular, impossible. Her form shifted as she stood. Soft bones ground against one another, twisting and churning like the stone in a mortar bowl beneath the flowing folds of her dress, black and soaked through with darker red. Her eyes never wavered. Two poles of milky white threaded with vines of crimson, locked tight to mine. And from that day on, she was my shadow. Most cannot see the revenants that haunt them outright. They can usually only see their manifestations. I've always been different in that way. Perhaps that's why I chosen to be a shopkeeper's apprentice. I tried to throw the bracelet away. Couldn't even sell it. No one would buy such a fine thing from a filthy street boy. They'd ask questions, call for the constables. I flung it far into the Thames more than once, and by the morning light, it would be there again, dripping wet, resting beside me. I wandered into the shop the same way all the customers do, unknowing, but with purpose, like sleepwalking. But for some reason, I woke up right there on the storefront floor. Not bleary-eyed, not drifting into some unconscious tide. Awake. An older gentleman named Remus stood waiting. His long gray beard was stained black at the corners of his mouth. He was the keeper before me. He had tended the shop for centuries. He told me he saw a spark in my eye, a glimmer of the right kind of soul. He removed my haunting in exchange for a pledge that I would enter into tutelage under him. Remus pulled me from the depths of a sorrowful life, and I gave myself to the work, willingly, reverently, wholeheartedly, and I never looked back. At the end of his time, Remus was bound. All his keepers are, and I will be, to the totem buried in the space beneath the shop, far below in the clogged and stifling bowels of this place. Once he had taught me what he knew of quiet rituals, of binding and unbinding, of souls and tethers, of the ins and outs of shopkeeping. He was given to the totem. His body unraveled, dissolving into a pool of black liquid, thick and still. His soul joined with the others. A sacred thing, long and weathered and older than memory. A stone rune marked with faint, glowing circles that shift slowly over time. Almost as if it breathes. Almost as if it is alive. You can commune with them, the spirits of the caretaker's past. They are intangible voices, but they hear. They are wizened. They are blooming with throughout. And God, can they be a nuisance sometimes? It's like speaking with your uncles, parents, and grandparents all at once. They talk over one another. They debate. They hold grudges. It's tiring. But I have grown to love them like they were my family. I will be spending the rest of my eternities with them, after all. I am growing quite old now, older than old. It's nearly time for me to find my own replacement, but I presume that is not why you came here. You came here for stories of spirits, of bindings, and of ritual. I'll give you that, now that you listen to my musings, my reflections of times gone to dust. You might have asked yourself one thing about these objects. Why don't you just hide them? I mentioned the bracelet earlier, how they always find their way back. Even destroying them doesn't work. Not really. Not unless you break them down to their atoms or dissolve them in acid. And I wouldn't recommend trying that yourself. There are spiritual threads that must be unwound with careful hands, practiced hands. Failure to do so can lead to dire consequences. One gentleman I met had been a priest at a small countryside chapel. An anchor object found its way inside. He didn't know where it came from. I suspected the previous owner passed on and someone gifted through ancient ritual to the priest. A cruel but effective way to pass along a curse. It's one of the many unspoken rules in my line of work. The object was a small ornate jewelry chest with a patinaed brass latch. Carvings like rising tides were etched along the wood grain. Symbols he didn't recognize had been burned into the surface, curling and scaling like black snakes. He felt the wrongness immediately. He came to me for help, but not with the box. I was horrified to see what clambered in behind him. Dozens of them. An amalgamation of flapping appendages and slithering limbs. A crawling crowd of limbs as long as street poles, dragging itself through my doorway like the exhale of a tube of toothpaste. God's teeth, man. What happened? What did you do? I could sense it right away, many spirits stitched into one. The thing behind him resembled in 10 tongues, all spitting and biting at the air. I destroyed the vessel, he said, the jewelry box, incinerated it in an iron crucible. It could never come back. I broke into a steel mill to do the deed. His voice was far away, like it was being spoken through layers of fog. You don't know what you've done, do you? He didn't answer. He just stood there, empty. The form behind him writhed, obscene, shifting in my storefront like something born of a fever dream. Out with you, I shouted. Damned is the hubris on you. You knew it was the wrong thing to do. You could feel it, but you did it anyway, I snapped, jabbing a finger at my own head. Man of God, I muttered, full of scorn. A poor decision from someone who should have known better, especially one who claimed to walk with divine light. There were dark entities latched to that anchor. Think of them like kites. He destroyed the anchor without cutting the strings. Now the strings had tangled and twisted, forming a single, monstrous thing. It was a walking colony of souls, cursed to drift the world until the sun burns out. I couldn't help him. You cannot untie a knot when the anchor has already been obliterated. The man turned to go. I was furious, I won't lie. I don't make a habit of assaulting my customers, but I grabbed the nearest book and hurled it. It hit his back with a solid thump. He stumbled forward, turned. His face was blank and dazed. He looked like a dog drugged before surgery, confused and dim with dread. The entity could have followed anyone, but it followed him. Because he forced it to. Because he doomed them both. The torment was his to bear, a punishment well earned. Hubris carries a price, in life and in death, and when he finally passes, I suspect there will be a thing of teeth and rage waiting in the dark, salivating. There are people even I cannot help. Some lines, once crossed, cannot be uncrossed. And once that priest sheds his mortal coil, he will learn something his sermons never taught him. That when spiritual entities can touch your spiritual form, they can wound you in ways that never heal. Claws and teeth can open flesh. They can spill blood, tear muscle, and leave behind scars. But a wound to the soul? That kind of pain lingers. That kind of rot spreads. That kind of tear doesn't close. It severs pieces of you, and those pieces never come back. As I sit here and type these things, reminiscing about older days, my cat Ramses purrs on my lap. He's not an ordinary cat. He's dead. A sphinx with a flair for dramatics. I found his collar stuffed in an envelope, shipped to my door. Usually, objects like that are sent back, unless they're sent to me, gifted intentionally. I have ways of returning spirits to the other side, not through the dumbwaiter I use for the lost souls of children, but through more deliberate, conscious means. Animal spirits don't appear often, less than any others I'd say. Their minds tend to be simple, direct. Passing on is usually easy and painless. Even the stubborn ones eventually find their way across. But some need a little coaxing, a little bit of love. Ramses is different. If stubbornness was an Olympic sport, this feline would have taken the gold, silver, and bronze medals, then destroyed the podium and eating the medals. I tried to coax him into crossing on, but damn it, no matter what I've tried, he always refuses. Spirits can interact with objects in our plane with some measure of difficulty. It could be a howling specter flapping open the door to your closet. It could be the depression of unseen hands and knees on the fabric of your bed. For Ramses, it's knocking things off shelves. Knocking over a glass of water I was just about to drink. For several years, he would scratch and yowl if you tried to touch him. He might be semi-incorporeal, but somehow those nails still find my skin. And damned if it doesn't hurt. But recently, and only recently, he has taken to climbing onto my lap and laying there. It's an odd sensation. He has a good amount of weight to him, even in death. We have a sort of no-touching policy. He will sit on my lap, but he will strike if a hand goes anywhere near him. I brought up Ramses to the totem that houses the spirits of the former shopkeepers. They chortled and laughed, often such useful advice as, feed him a sprinkle of tuna, and damned if I know. Whatever was done to this poor beast must have been something awful. He carries it with him like he's dragging behind him an iron barbell. The appearance of him scared me at first. The damage done to him in life had been so profound, it broke even his spiritual form nearly beyond repair. An anomaly among the scant animal spirits I've encountered. Ramses is a thing plated in overlapping fish-like scales. He watches blankly behind unknowing eyes, slitted diagonally like a snake's. Puckered things, swollen from sockets high up on his head. Rows of mismatched curved teeth fill his mouth. Hairless still, but decidedly more amphibious than he must have been in life. I offered him treats of the kind a spiritual being can taste. He offered me claws and teeth in return, then ate the treats once I retreated far enough away. I tried luring him with toys, ones he could touch and manipulate easily with his new form. But he simply stares at them from across the room, blinking one wet eye, as slow as sin, then the other, always watching. If only I could understand what cavernous labyrinth spanned his mind. Maybe then I could crack the enigma of him. I'll be the first to admit, I thought my work with Ramses had been a failure. In a way, I was right. But on another face of the same coin, I was wrong, because I've now run into a different kind of issue. Every time I sit down, he climbs into my lap. No care, no warning, not even a hello. I purchased him a soft bed, yet he always chooses my lap. The bed has grown dusty and cobwebbed from disuse. He has even started purring. I am unsure if it is from comfort or simply the joy of ownership. Because make no mistake, I belong to him now. Despite being rough around the edges, I have fallen into a quiet rhythm with him as I sit behind the counter. I spin my yarns with Ramses during the quiet hours. He is bad at many things, but he is a dutiful listener. I often stay frozen with him perched on me like some kind of tamed iguana until my legs prickle with pins and needles, because I've learned the wrath of the delapped Ramses is not something I wish on my worst enemy. I would have thought the soul of a feline would be easier to work with than those of humans, or ancient things dormant in the earth. But this one is more pharaoh than cat, more titan than god. He left his mark on everything, my shelves, my floors, the rhythm of my days. Even in death, he has found ways to make himself permanent. I see pieces of him in the air. I feel him when the wind brushes past the threshold, and I've begun to fear something I've never expected. The one day I'll sit down and he won't come. That I'll call out and the shop will stay quiet. That I will wake up and see that he's gone. That after all this time, he has finally chosen to cross. And that day, when it comes, will break something in me that I don't think I'll be able to repair. Awesome second part, man. Can't wait to see the third one. Go ahead and check out Skull Knitter's Reddit page if you haven't yet. It's in the description below. I appreciate each and every one of you out there in Masochist land. Please comment, like, subscribe. I appreciate it. I am the Meat Green Masochist. Farewell.